Hello there, welcome to this session. And what we're looking at, how the past has really impacted your future and what to do about it. So, before we really get going on this is a very strong area, very strong topic. You will very much enjoy this. Before we start getting
Hello
going
there,
on
welcome
that,
to this
expand
session.
window to full screen if you can. You will see me later. And what we're
grab a
looking
pen
at
and paper.
how the past
because you will want
has
to take
really
notes
impacted your
and
your
shut
future
any doors
and
so you
what
can hear
to do
without
about it.
distraction
So
and pay close attention
before we really get going on this
you'll
is
not
a
want
very
to
strong
miss
area,
anything.
very strong topic.
So,
You will very much enjoy this. Before we start getting
hello
going
there,
on that,
welcome to
expand
this session.
window to full screen if you can. You will see me later. And what we're
grab a
looking
pen
at
and paper.
how to know
you will want to take
if
notes
you
and
are
shut
in
any
the right
doors
place.
so you
How
can
do you
hear
know
without
about it?
distraction
So,
and the right
pay
place
close
for
attention
this
before we
session.
start.
Well,
Before we really get going on
because
this
this
webinar
is
is for you.
not
Very
to
strong.
miss.
If you've
Very
completed
strong topic,
the
so
family
you'll
secret
very
quiz,
much enjoy
some of you
this.
may have, and
Before
some
we
of you
start
may
getting
not
going
have.
on that, welcome to this
Expand
session.
window to full screen.
It's certainly
You
for
will see
you
me
if you want
later.
to know
And what we're
grab a
looking
pen
at
and
what
paper.
that means to you,
if
and you want to know
and
why you're so sensitive. And it's also for you if you want to know how your ancestors have impacted your inner world.
Hello there, welcome to this session.
It's also absolutely for you if you want to know the real reason that you feel powerless. Okay, this webinar is definitely for you if you're a sensitive who has or hasn't experienced childhood trauma. So it's relevant whether you have or you haven't experienced childhood trauma. And if you feel it's time that you have some answers, even if it feels like you might need to be brave in order to hear some of those. It's also for you, absolutely, if you are ready to heal. Okay? So, it's not for you if having answers to lifelong questions might be too much for you. Okay? If you really feel that having some of these really strong answers to things may be a little bit too much for you, then this session is not for you, okay? Because you might well find it's a little bit too much. So today's agenda, what am I looking at? Well, you're here because you're ready for some answers, okay, to some quite tough questions. Some of those tough questions in life, some of those things that you've experienced as a sensitive, and some of those things that you would love an answer for, but you haven't yet had an answer through your lifetime. I'm pretty certain that some of those big questions you will receive the answer to in tonight's session. I promise that what I give you will help you, okay? You might feel a little shocked, but it will be followed by a huge relief, okay? A huge sense of relief. I will also explain how your ancestors made you a sensitive, okay? I will show you how to change what you want to change when previously you felt powerless. And I'll show you why you've been searching for your core. So, before we really get going on this, here's a little bit about me, my score, and why I do my work. Okay, this is the reasons why. Now, you'll want to know this for the simple reason that when you have an ACE score, which obviously I will be explaining that a little bit later, you need to know that you can trust. So my score on the ACE test is 7, okay? I used to be intensely ashamed of myself. Why? Because I've been taught to be. As a child, I suffered from untreated severe depression. Planning my funeral from about age 7. Obviously, I didn't know what on earth it was, and there was no one to assist or help or explain what on earth was happening. As an adult, my chronic inflammation and autoimmune diseases started at around 25 years old. And when I was pregnant with both of my sons, my immune system couldn't cope. The first son, I swelled to an unmanageable size and had very severe health problems. And the second son, 7 years later, I would have certainly died without modern medicine. I also signed away my whole reproductive system at the same time, at 39. I was told in no uncertain terms that if I ever got pregnant again, I would die. So therefore, everything had to be removed. After both children, I endured severe hormone-induced postnatal illness. Now, I could go on. That's simply a little of it. And I'm only telling you this because when it comes to trust in what we're about to look at, you need to know that I know. Okay, that I know what some of those core emotions are. I know what some of those core experiences are, and I know what it feels like to be in your world. So why do I do my work? I do my work because it validates my existence, to be honest. I get to know I exist. And that was most certainly something that was not allowed when in my formative years. And I enjoy seeing that level of transformation in others that I found in myself. My postgraduate background is in transpersonal psychology, spirituality and consciousness. Really, my path created itself for me. Why? I believe that my saviour, so to speak, was a deep intuitive unfolding. Perhaps developed itself perhaps as a survival mechanism. Now, in my experience, in my life, my inner world has transformed. It's not perfect, but it's transformed. It's transformed enough to give me absolute pleasure and emotional safety without neediness. All I do in life is share what I consider works. I'm not known for fluffy stuff, so there isn't any of that, I'm afraid. I just share what, in my experience, works. Okay, and that much of that is based on attaining a level of self-compassion. A little bit of what we'll look at as we go further into this session. I'm also a published author, so my books are printed in at least 5 languages. I think it's more than that now. I host events in the UK and Ireland, both small ones and large ones. Absolutely blessed to work with fantastic, lovely people. All sensitives are, in my experience, and certainly those ones who are absolutely like you, wanting to understand and develop their inner world. Here is a young picture of me when I started out. This is right at the beginning. I've worked full-time in this area since 1996. As I say, you will see me in a bit as we go further into this session, where it will switch to a screen where you will be able to see me. Here are a few stories, okay? A few stories, documented stories of people's experiences with me. They're just examples of stories of transformation that we receive, and over the years we've now received thousands of these. Okay, so these are just some of our clients' transformational stories. Just to know that, for you to know that these things are real, that these levels of transformation do exist. So why look at the ACE scores? Why are you doing this? Why have you looked at the family secret quiz? Why have you filled it in? Well, you've tried things, okay? You've tried a lot of things. You've tried a lot of things in life. You've tried positive thinking. You've tried affirmations. And you've tried the whole kind of being happy thing and finding your joy, okay? Well, what happens when your mind goes blank, when you don't know what joy looks like? How do you discover what that is when you're sensitive, stressing out, when you actually think that the idea of happy, even though you really want that, or finding your joy, or what is peaceful in your life, feels like something unobtainable, and your mind goes blank. You don't know what on earth that is. You don't know what to write down. And when you've tried the affirmations, and the feedback that you get in your own system is, the affirmation is perhaps, I'm beautiful. And the affirmation comes back in your own mind saying, no, you're not. You really aren't. You're not. You're this, you're that, you're everything but that. So you've tried those things, and you've tried really strong in your life with those aspects of positive thinking. So why does it seem to work for other people, yet it's tricky for yourself? Well, this is why we're looking at this subject area. Okay, this is why we're looking at this subject area and how it's impacted you, and how it can adjust as time moves forward. So what is the ACE study, the AC study? It was developed in the late 1990s by accident. It's an American study that came about following a national obesity program, which was to do with, we couldn't understand why people who were losing weight were dropping out of the program. Couldn't understand why they were dropping out and not completing it when they were getting results. I couldn't figure why, and thought, well, something's going on, we need to understand. So this study kind of developed by accident in the initial stages. So billions of dollars was actually pumped into this study to look at childhood adversity. Obviously, I will define what that means as we go a bit further into this session, and its impact on adult emotional and physical health. So not only emotional health, but certainly physical health. Again, we will be looking at that as we go further into this session. So the 10-point questionnaire was developed, which is the ACE or AC questionnaire. Now, you most likely know now what your score is, having completed your ACE test as part of this session. Okay, so part of the family quiz, the first part was filling in the ACE 10 standard questions, which were part of the study in order to give your ACE score. So this study in the late 90s, the results were intensely revealing, intensely revealing on how things utilized in people's lives. So this, what you've got now on your screen, is the order, for intuitive sensitives. ACE order for intuitive sensitives in order. Okay, so we had over a 7-day period, over 1,000 self-identified intuitive sensitive people complete our version of the questionnaire, which included the 10 childhood adversity questions, and 10 I asked specifically for in relation to intuitive sensitive people. So the ACE scores came out as before the age of 18, that you had experienced significant parental, verbal, emotional abuse as number one. As you can see on your screen, came out as the number one area. So for you as intuitive sensitives, maybe your score, when you think, well, I filled it in and I didn't feel that mine came out as that, but for you collectively as an intuitive sensitive, these are generally the order of the scores, that came out within our questionnaire. So number one was the emotional parental abuse, So that has a hugely profound impact on an already sensitive system, which I will be just going into a little bit further into this session. It really does affirm a high level of certain sets of things that you will have experienced in your adult life, some of those challenges that you find that you need to or want to overcome, and some of those roadblocks that you come up against when you feel blocked. This absolutely will explain, as we go further into this session, exactly how this has occurred. Number two was emotional neglect. Now that, emotional neglect and verbal attacks, emotional abuse, as far as that's concerned, they go very closely together. So that doesn't surprise me that that came in as number two. And the third area is mental illness. Now, on your screen, you can see that these are kind of really quite closely together. These are the top three areas that you have experienced as your levels of early life adversity. So those things that have impacted you prior to the age of 18. Now, in my view, and again, in my view, looking at these, where does this come from? These three particular areas together. So the emotional abuse, emotional neglect, and mental illness. So that means that not that you have mental illness, it means that you were on the receiving end of that during your early life experience. Now, when we put those three together, that tells me very strongly that this is a historical pattern. Okay, this tells me that it's generational, and it's something that tells me that this is something that has been passed through the generations. So what I'm saying is this is not a case of looking at this and feeling guilty and blaming your parents or thinking, oh gosh, should I think differently of them? They've tried their hardest, they've tried their best, all this kind of stuff. Am I saying that you should blame your parents for your early life experience? No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, in how this shows in the intuitive sensitive experience, is that these three areas together strongly suggests to me that this is generational. So this is something that's been passed through the ages. Okay, so when you put emotional abuse together, emotional neglect, and mental illness, there's a strong indication that in your generational experience that there is a high level of emotional abandonment through the ages. Because for these specific things to be directed towards you as your life experience, I would absolutely say that this is something that hasn't just started in your lifetime, in your life experience. I would say this has gone back a long time through your generations. Okay, now I'm just picking out on this at the moment because this is the key and main area that we're looking at. Okay, so it's generational, I would say, and what you're doing, certainly in being here right now, is breaking that pattern. Okay, so if you're worried and you're thinking, oh gosh, if this is generational and you've got children of your own and you're worried and you're thinking, well, does this mean I'm going to pass this on? Have I passed this on? I didn't mean to pass this on. I certainly didn't intend for any of this to be the case. Well, of course you didn't. And most certainly the generations past not mean for necessarily for that to be the case. But it has been the case, and it will have had a profound impact on you, which I will go into later, and what your life experience has been as an intuitive sensitive and how that shapes moving forward. You are, though, breaking that pattern. Okay, you are most definitely breaking that pattern. You are involved hugely with doing that, and I'm going to say right up front, before we even really get into this, that you are extremely aware, brave, and a fantastic person. Okay, and you'll say, well, Heidi, you don't know me. Well, I'm telling you, in looking at the data that came through, I know that you are, and also looking at the questions that came through for this particular session. We had over 500 submitted questions just for this session. Okay, so obviously I will be giving you an insight into what some of those answers are as we move further into this session. But you are absolutely the person. If you think, well, actually, Heidi, I'm not brave, I'm not this, I'm not that, I feel too sensitive, I feel too open to the elements and all of that. Well, actually, you are extremely brave, okay? Because you are breaking that pattern. How? You think, well, am I doing anything as far as this is concerned? Maybe not. But you're breaking that pattern by choosing to become aware of it. Okay, so as we move through the different areas, so the different areas of the 10 questions, so I was quite surprised actually that parental separation is actually quite a long way down the line, whereas people mostly associate parental separation as something that has created a traumatic experience in early life. Now, as we move in to some of the other areas, so this is the general order of the different scores. So if you think to yourself, well, I had a score of 0, you're very, fantastic. Okay, we do have some lucky intuitive sensitives with a score of 0, but that score doesn't mean that their sensitivity came from nowhere. Okay, it doesn't mean that just because if you did have a score of 0, that your sensitivity came from nowhere. I will obviously explain that as we go a little bit further into the session, but you're one of the lucky ones, and quite honestly, one of the lucky few, seemingly, as far as intuitive sensitives are concerned. So the highest area that we actually, as you can see from this chart, the numbers are really quite close, very close between what came first and what came second. So the highest number of that particular score was a 3. So that has a significant impact on your life experience, which I will explain a little bit further. And close second was an ACE score of 4, which when you start moving into an ACE score of 4, it does open you into a wider element of certain inflammatory diseases, all of that kind of thing, or upsets in your own system. So if you've got things like IBS, you've had chronic fatigue, you've got fibromyalgia, all of those things that can't really be fully explained, or you've got those kind of grumpy things that go on and you go to the doctors and something's wrong and you can't quite figure it out. No one can see it. It's not really showing on any blood tests or anything like that yet. You are more prone to that possibility with a score that goes up. The kind of risk factors go up as far as that's concerned from an ACE score of 4 or more than someone with a score of 0. Okay, then we have, it goes into number 5 and number 6. So they're all very, really quite close together. Now I'm very saddened to see that we do have some people who've completed this questionnaire who do have an ACE score of 10. I'm very, very saddened by that. And I feel very strongly for those people, and I feel very strongly for, that kind of set of life experiences, and that you are exceptionally brave people. Very, very, very brave, extremely brave. And I'm getting all emotional. You'll see me in a minute. I'm getting all emotional because I have a deep, profound amount of respect for your ability to look at this, to start to understand some of these things. Now, as we move into the second set of questions, so this was the second set of questions that you answered on the family secret quiz, which these questions relate to your life more as an adult. Okay, so absolutely, some of you who experienced have got low ACE scores, so low sort of 0 to 1 to 2, do have absolutely quite a few of these, or have experienced these in your adult experience, in your adult life. So the top one is that you give in to guilt and pressure. Now, I'll explain why in a moment when we go into, how these things or how your system has been reshaped, it's been changed. I'll explain that in a moment as to why. But really, to give you this on your screen right now, gives you an insight into realizing that you're not the only one. Okay, so if someone's through your life said, oh gosh, you know what, you're just too sensitive, just don't get it. Or you're just so overreactive to things, you'll say this and you'll say that. And you wondered whether you are, or you thought you've been unreasonable, all of these things. Well, I'm showing you this in this graph for you to understand that there are absolutely people who have had similar experiences, absolutely get it. And the reason for presenting this to you, and so you can see it, is to give you some kind of element of relief, to feel that actually a lot of these things are definitely not your fault. Okay, so number one on that area was tired all the time, in terms of giving into guilt and pressure. You will feel absolutely shattered a lot of the time, where your life has been where you have to give in to guilt and pressure. The next area was that you are fiercely loyal to those who don't deserve it. Now that will be very interesting as we go further into this. Again, I will be able to give you some very clear indications as to why and how you can start to resolve that and solve that in your own system. The next one was the shame energy, which was the feeling that the Grim Reaper is somewhere hiding. Okay, that it's hiding somewhere. It's kind of the feeling that it's behind the door. So every time you start getting into this experience of enjoying yourself, all of a sudden you feel, you don't know why, but something inside just sort of sinks and goes, whoa, am I allowed this experience? Again, going back into that, well, I've tried the joy thing. I've tried finding my joy. I can't figure it. I can't find it. And I don't know why, when everybody else or other people seem to be able to. If you've had that as your experience and you think, whoa, something jumps up inside of me and I don't know what it is, how can I tame it? How can I stop it? I will be giving you some answers as far as that's concerned. Other aspects, which is worry that emotions will be, if you express your emotions, they'll be used against you. I strongly suspect that if you answered yes to that particular area, then you would also answer yes to early experiences where you felt verbally abused. Okay. So you'll see me in a second. Okay, so just bear with me a second. Now I can't cover all, I can't cover it all. Can't cover it all the different areas. Okay. So what I'm going to do is cover what's been raised by your questions. Okay, so these are the real answers to the questions that came in. Bearing in mind that I had over 500 come in the last 3 days. Okay, so if you worried and you think, well, surely did Heidi look at my question? Has anyone seen my question? We've seen your questions. Okay, we have seen your questions, and I'm going to get all emotional in a minute. Many of those have been deeply moving. Okay, deeply moving. So my heart goes out to you, and I'm very grateful for that level of trust and honesty in that what you've given as far as that's concerned. Amazing amount of trust and honesty, and absolutely I'm committed to doing my best as far as that's concerned. So I'm going to cover what's really been raised by your questions, the core elements of those questions. Okay, so the essence of those is, what's the essence of those questions? What is the real thing that you're asking here? The real question that really comes up is, why do I feel powerless? Why do I feel powerless? Why do I feel powerless to change something when actually it seems to be all right for everybody else? And the other kind of really strong element of those questions is, what do I create in my life when I don't know how to create? Lots of these things in my life are about, I should be able to create this, I should be to do this, to do that, to change this, to do that. But I don't know how to create. I don't know how to make that transition. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to find it. Create could be, how do you find your sense of purpose? Where do you feel that you fit in? How do I create? You don't know how to create. So to start answering that, okay, so to start answering those two kind of key questions about how your life works is, first of all, we need to look at, how did you become a sensitive? What was that pathway? Okay, how did that happen? How did that happen in your life? Well, it would have happened in several ways. Okay, so for those of you who have got a low score, a low ACE score, so a low early adversity score, then this is the reason. And for those of you who've got higher ones, this is an additional reason, okay, why you have a strong level of sensitivity. That sensitivity is developed by maternal stress. Okay, so before you were born, what does that mean? Before you were born, your mother experienced prolonged worry. Okay, and you think, well, was she worried? Does she speak of being worried? Well, she was. Okay, she had something that was either going on in her life or had gone on in her own history, which created a persona of worry. Now, what happens as far as that's concerned? Well, that chronic prenatal stress, okay, so that chronic prenatal stress, as in what you experienced in the womb, destabilizes what's called the HPA axis. Okay, now I'm not going to get too technical as far as that's concerned, but just so that you're aware that it involves the endocrine system, but one of the primary areas that it involves is your adrenals. Okay, so if you've been tired all the time and you think, well, I have this funny old thing called chronic adrenal fatigue, I've experienced chronic fatigue in my life, I've had fibromyalgia, I've had mysterious things going on, and I don't understand why. Well, it could well be that your HPA axis was destabilized before you were born. Okay, so don't panic. Don't start panicking and going, whoa, what the hell do I do about this? Can I change this? Yes, you can change it. And obviously, as we go further into this session, I will explain exactly how you can change that. But what I'm saying is, it's not your fault. Okay, and it's not your mother's fault either. It's just the fact of life. Okay, and if that stress was chronic over a prolonged period of time, it destabilizes the HPA axis, which means, in short, that your body struggles to solve cortisol levels. Okay, cortisol is a stress hormone. So other areas may have been that there may have been depression. Okay, so your mother may have experienced depression, and looking at your scores, and so the major area, it came in third, depression, you experienced in your adult environment prior to the age of 18, that would be a strong indicator. Okay, so depression in the mother may actually trigger her HPA axis to circulate higher levels of cortisol. So there's higher levels of cortisol circulating in her own system. So in short, war in its many forms creates sensitive babies. So I'm saying war in its many forms, which can be an internal war, an external war, as in something highly stressful going on in your mother's environment when she was carrying you. Actual war, because a lot of you who completed the our questionnaire are second generation post-war babies. Okay, so there would have been some elements of war stored in the core of your mother's worry, all of those kind of things, and protection, and how she protects. So you can add to also that some of those epigenetic factors. Okay, so if we look at it in terms of your ancestors' worry, okay, so sensitivity can be developed as well through your ancestors' worry, the epigenetic factors. So if I explain that as, actually I have drawn something very basic, but I've drawn it in order to symbolize that, which is as a lotus flower. Okay, so if you look at it as a lotus flower, what does that mean? Well, it means that our DNA is actually from the beginning. Okay, from the beginning, our DNA, what we're made up of, is it's like a closed lotus flower. You know, the way I've looking at this is a way of understanding some of the research, and I've looked at an awful lot of research, and it's my way of interpreting some of these things for your understanding. Okay, so imagine it, your DNA as a closed lotus flower. Okay, so what happens is that the lotus flower is meant to open. Okay, so it's meant to open, and as it opens, you know, that DNA has some blemishes on it, that kind of stuff. So those are the things, that the epigenetic things that have been passed through generations. Epigenetics are the emotional markers that have been passed through generations, both positive and negative. So imagine that some of those petals stay closed and they can't open. Okay, those are what's called stress hormone receptors. So how stress is processed. So those can't open, they're stuck. Okay, they're stuck because childhood adversity is an example. So if you add that stress of childhood adversity on top of the sensitivity that your mother experienced, which then creates a disruption, a destabilization of the HPA axis, your adrenals, all that kind of stuff, what happens? Well, those petals can't open. Okay, why? Because the brakes are off. They can't open properly because the brakes are off. It's just, it stays closed. It can't open. Okay. And what does it mean? It means that the brain cannot then regulate your stress response. It can't regulate it properly, which is why sensitives experience overwhelm. And pretty much it makes your system sensitive. Now, this doesn't mean that it's a negative in any shape or form. What I'm doing is explaining why some of these things have occurred in your life and why they are things that you experience and why they are things to adjust and change. It doesn't mean that these are things that are unchangeable, okay? But my key points within these, as we go further in, is that it's not going to change without your input, okay? So if you're hoping for adjustments, if you're hoping for something to change on its own, it can't without your input, but it can change, okay? It can absolutely change. So you add that, you add the maternal stress, petals can't open because of some of those early adversity things. Add all that in terms of childhood adversity, you end up with profound changes in areas of the brain that govern how we recognize feelings, okay? So if you struggle with recognizing how you feel about something, especially when you have a stress about it, when you get stressed about it, you think, well, I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know. And you think, whoa, I should know, but I don't know. These are because the patterns have adjusted, they've changed, okay, from a normal route. It also means that you have struggled to voice what you want, okay? So at key areas and times in your life, and you get really annoyed with yourself and you get tongue-tied and you think, oh, why didn't I say that? What was the matter with me? So these profound changes in areas governing the brain mean that we do this, okay? It means that we fail to recognize when we can voice what we want, and we fail to recognize our own feelings, okay, what we actually feel. So when you get that tongue-tied in important moments, it's not because it's you, okay? It also means that there is a struggle to empathize with other people, okay? Now, that doesn't impact you as an intuitive sensitive, okay? That doesn't impact you specifically as an intuitive sensitive, because you know full well how to empathize with other people, okay? For you as a sensitive, you struggle with recognizing your feelings and voicing what you want, okay? You will find that that's tricky. You might say to me, well, actually, I'm pretty good at voicing what I want. Well, you'll do that when you're angry, but that's not actually voicing what you want, okay? It's getting angry, it's getting cross. You'll find that you don't necessarily do that until you get cross, okay? The empathy bit, and you think, well, actually, I do empathize with people. Well, there are people, you know full well, as we can see from the results in terms of, your interaction with difficult people, is that the empathy bit, those who've had adversity markers in their early experience, they're the narcissists, okay? What's a narcissist? Well, someone who has an inability to empathize, and also somebody who kind of pretty much takes pleasure in harming, upsetting, and causing you dismay. Why? Because they don't feel comfortable with acknowledging their own pain, so they like to create it and see it in another person, in short. So, as an example, if you were raised by a narcissist, you didn't have the normal encouragement that children should have. It was either preloaded, as in, well, you're not good enough unless you attain this, or you're this type of person, or you express yourself in this way in the world, so I can say I'm responsible for that. Or if you're raised by a narcissist, it can be in the opposite direction, which is completely destroyed and torn apart and made to feel inadequate and completely useless. Okay, so what happens with that is your inner world translates that as you're unlovable. It then says, well, actually, it becomes programmed in there. Well, I'm unlovable then, I feel helpless, hopeless, and completely unlovable. That's how you'll feel. Okay, so Ruth Manius, who is a neuroscientist and a director of PTSD, so post-traumatic stress disorder research at the University of Ontario, says, this is what she says, is that your brain pathways are disrupted, okay? And it means that, in short, it means that your default mode, so the default mode that the brain should have of dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum, just kind of peaceful dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum, is weak because it can't self-regulate. It worries, it's wound up high. If the HPA axis is upset, it's wound up high. You feel stress in an intense way. That's when you start going into the overwhelm, all of those kind of things. And working on your internal world, those may have lessened considerably, okay? Considerably. This is not a, I can't do anything about it scenario. This is absolutely, you can very much do something about it, and I will go into that. But in essence, you're kind of dum-de-dum-de-dum, that sort of humming along in the brain that happens normally for people is weak. Therefore, your sense of self and your sense of peace is weak, or it's significantly weakened, okay? It will have been significantly weakened by all of these factors. And the higher your score, higher your ACE score, the more that will have a profound impact, particularly on your sense of powerlessness. So then what happens? The damage occurs in the default network. Okay, so the default network is whenever there's something's happening, and the brain should go back to dum da dum da dum da dum. There's damage there, so it doesn't go back to a dum da dum da dum da dum. It goes back to it doesn't know. Okay, so repeated trauma creates a sense of powerlessness. It means that your dum da dum da dum da dum doesn't activate. Okay, so as an example, now this is going into the childhood adversity stuff now. Okay, so really understanding the core of what those experiences have created in your system, not to blame anyone, not to punish anyone, but actually to really understand how you can adjust it and change it. Okay, as I explained earlier, my score is a 7, which is high. It's a high score, a high childhood adversity score. And my particular areas should mean that I should find life exceptionally difficult, very, very hard. I certainly shouldn't have a highly functional relationship. I shouldn't have happy children. I shouldn't have all kinds of things. Okay, I shouldn't be able to do what I do. I should be barely functional. In fact, all of the autoimmune issues that I have, I should really not be properly functional at all. Okay, so I'm not saying to you that these aren't things that you can adjust, and you can't say to me, oh, what, Heidi, you're different. I'm not. Far from it. I'm not different at all. What I'm telling you this for is to give you the steps, the really clear ways, really clearly and strongly defined ways. I'm doing this now. You think, well, Heidi, why are you telling me this now? And I wish I'd known about this eons time ago. You weren't ready. Okay, you would have run from it. You would have said, oh, that's too uncomfortable. I don't want to know. I don't want to go there. I wouldn't have, you would have zoned out and gone, and maybe you have during this session, you would have gone, whoa, we're professionals at zoning out. Okay, because our whole system, the HPA axis, the amygdala, part of the brain that experiences fear goes, whoa, and goes, boof, out. We're off. We're really experts. We're brilliant at it. Okay, that's what daydreaming is. It's a disassociation. It's removal from physicality because something feels trauma. It feels stressed. So when children can't flee, okay, and they can't fight, so they can't flee and they can't fight. When children can't flee and fight, they freeze. They freeze, and they may have frozen on repeated occasions. Okay, so if you've come from significant adversity or even mild adversity, because again with the sensitized system, you're going to feel it. It's going to be there. Okay, if you felt that there's a threat, if your system has felt the threat there, and it's felt that it can't flee, it can't fight, it's frozen. Okay, it went, whoa, and it stayed there. Your nervous system stayed there. So the brain setting then becomes something where it's set to immobilize. So as soon as your system feels stress, it's set then to immobilize. It's going, whoa, freeze. Okay, to feel emotionally immobilized. Hence the reason for powerlessness, which is to feel that it can't do anything, doesn't know what to do, doesn't know how to change something. It desperately wants to, so the other part of you, the adult part of you is saying, well, hang on a second, surely I can do this, surely I can change this. And then the whole system goes, woof, slams on those brakes and it freezes and you have no idea what to do or how to change it. Hence that strong sensation of trying to override. And you've done that lots of times, and then your body's tired. You can't override, you get cross with yourself, or it goes into this, well, I just can't do it. It goes into this helplessness of, there's no way, I've tried. I've really, really tried. Okay? So when as an example, a parent is the source of the trauma, okay? The child's brain is saying, run from this person, okay? Because that's the normal fight-flight response. Run from this person to survive. And it's saying, at the same time, run to this person. So run from them and run to them, as they are my survival. So when the trauma is directed from a parent, that's what the child's brain does, okay? And trauma doesn't have to be, you could say to me, well, Heidi, I wasn't physically harmed. Mine was more verbal abuse. Mine was, it was more, you could say, parental separation. You could say it was a scenario where, of parental incarceration, as in prison. So actually, they didn't hurt me, so to speak. Didn't physically hurt me. You could say, well, it didn't feel like, there was a physical component. Of course it's physical. The system still takes it on as trauma, okay? It still interprets it as trauma. So when a parent is the source of the trauma, the child's brain is saying, run from this person to survive. And it's also saying, run to this person. They are my survival. So I have to do as I'm told. I have to be this good girl, a good boy. I have to be this good person, because in order to survive, I have to do this. Okay, or it will be rebellion, whichever format it shows in. That's what the child's brain does. It goes, well, run and run too. Okay, so two circuits are activated. The one that says the flee, which is run away from, and the one that says, run to. This is my source of safety. This is my survival. So those two circuits have activated at the same time. The child can't do both. It cannot do both. So the brain cannot do those two things. So the default setting becomes freeze. Okay? So every time you come up against something in your life where you think, whoa, this way, that way, that way, your default setting will become freeze. Okay? It will just go woof. No matter how much you try to change it, it will just go woof. And that results in that you'll disassociate, okay? You'll disassociate from your feelings, or even maybe that was your experience as a child. Again, if you're anything like me, you tripped out of your body. You went somewhere else. You were off. You could feel yourself somewhere else, It was kind of tripping out of the body, going, whoa, this is too much. Woof, I'm off. So you disassociate. Then, what do you do as an adult? You then have no idea how you feel. Okay? You might say to me, well, actually, I do. I feel that's the problem, Heidi. I feel too much. Yeah, well, you flip from one to the other. But it's not, you don't actually know how you feel whilst you still have that freeze scenario as active. But the main question, as I said earlier in this session, I haven't got time to go through all of this. We could be here all day, all night. As far as if I was to go through everything, I'm answering this core question, which is, why do I feel so powerless? That's why, okay? So then when your system's in freeze, everything becomes a threat. Happiness becomes a threat in case it means punishment. You can't be seen in case it's dangerous. Okay, why do you think weight is difficult to shift? Why do you think that it comes to this issue where you lose weight and then all of a sudden you find yourself sabotaging? Well, because your system's gone, well, I have to freeze. That's the only safety there is. You then find yourself going into this space of thinking, oh, I can't handle needy people. Neediness is distasteful. So you reject your own neediness and you reject it hugely in terms of other people. That's too damn uncomfortable when your system's in freeze. It cannot readily recognize. So those of you who ask me the questions are all about, well, hang on a second, is this why I mess up relationships? Why I can't find someone who I can really feel love? Well, when the system's in freeze, that's what we do. You cannot readily recognize dangerous and unhealthy situations or interactions. And you think, well, is that my intuition letting me down? No, it's not. It's not. It's that freeze mechanism that's still programmed there from very early on. okay? Because that was the method of survival. So that's what happens. And you think, well, I've picked funny old relationships, really, ones I shouldn't have been around. Well, because then you cannot readily recognize dangerous or unhealthy situations or interactions. So it means that you stay in relationships that are chaotic and harmful because they seem to that brain freeze familiar and safe. And it's an understanding. Oh, yeah, I understand this one. That brain freeze has gone, oh, well, this is familiar and safe. I get this. I may not like it, but I get it, understand it. And then you find yourself veering, okay, with little warning from feeling completely numb, as in disassociated, to then, whoa, things are off on a high note. You veer from one to the other. And you'll also find yourself giving too much in relationships, whether that's to family or needy friends or that kind of thing. You find yourself giving too much because you're unattuned to your interior cues for boundaries. You'll find that happens, is that you think, you find yourself over giving. That's why, as we looked at in terms of the second set of questions, I do that. I feel myself giving into pressure. This is why. Okay, this is why, because the system's gone, whoa, freeze. Then what happens is you erupt in anger, okay, when you realise that you've been giving more to something than you've been receiving. Okay, then you get angry. You think, whoa, blah, blah, blah. It comes out. And you think, well, I do express my feelings. But it happens when you feel that you've been giving more than you've receiving. And then it's that kind of crushing, whoa, what happened there? Don't like that part of me. Whoa, uncomfortable. Also what happens is what's called your interoceptive awareness also turns off. When that freeze is locked, your interoceptive awareness turns off as well. What does that mean? It means you can't notice when your body is talking to you. Okay? Hence, reason why you get sick and tired. There is also less activity in the cortex, an area of the brain. Okay? What does that mean? It also means that self-reflection is tricky. What does that mean in terms of your life? Well, it means that you then react too fast. The sensitive part is going, whoa, and then it's the whole, oh, you're too sensitive, because your reactions are too fast. They're hyper alert. Okay, so you then find yourself easily switched to anger and irritation. When that's overloaded and that's overwhelmed, that's what you find yourself in. And then you get yourself into knee-jerk reactions to rejection. Okay, so you'll perceive things as rejection when not necessarily rejection. You'll have a knee-jerk reaction to injustice. You feel immediately, you'll skip in your mind that it must be an injustice rather than looking to the wider perspective of it, because it will be a knee-jerk, okay? And you also find yourself having a knee-jerk reaction to disagreements and that feeling of powerlessness in terms of the internal world. Or you go in the opposite direction, okay? And you go into anxiety, withdrawal, and avoiding confrontation at all costs. This is all as a result of what happens when the system goes lockdown, freeze, because of that, didn't know where to go, okay? Didn't know where to go for its essence of survival. So when you go into that position of that direction of anxiety, withdrawal, and avoiding confrontation at all costs, what happens then? You become overwhelmed, okay? You become overwhelmed with feelings of loss and betrayal. And that is quite intense sometimes, that feeling of loss and betrayal. You don't know then where you can trust, okay? And then you find yourself going, whoa! So it's like this kind of swing between under-feeling. So I'm looking for a pen, hang on. So you then find this intensity of this under-feeling, okay? So you swing between this sort of pendulum of under-feeling and then going, whoa, into over-feeling. I think, whoa, where's my balance? Where do I feel safe? Where do I feel my evenness inside? Okay. Add to that, the higher your ACE score, the more likely you'll have inflammatory diseases. Okay. There is countless research matching inflammatory diseases, autoimmune diseases, to childhood adversity. And to be quite frank with you, the higher your score, the higher the instances of that being the case. There is the research is so indicative that in several studies they've been afraid to publish the results because they look manipulated. They're not. They look manipulated because it is so clear. It's very, very, very clear that disruption happens in the system. If you think about it, what is an inflammatory disease? What autoimmune things are inflammatory? Those are things like underactive thyroid, diabetes, IBS. All of those kind of houses of inflammatory things. So is even chronic fatigue. Things like rheumatoid arthritis, things like lupus. All of those are all part of that family. Yes, of course, there are absolutely there are some things that have very strong genetic causes and all of that, and it's got nothing to do with childhood adversity, but the connection between childhood adversity and inflammatory diseases is huge. But if you think about it, what is an inflammatory disease? And heart disease as well. What is an inflammatory disease? What is inflammation? It's bruising. Okay. Yes, all of it becomes, the system becomes stress, and it goes towards inflammation. It goes towards that chronic inflammation over a long period of time. But if you think about the core emotion, as far as that's concerned, it's to do with bruising. Inflammation is bruising. So it's kind of a reflection of an internal bruising. Certainly as far as my autoimmune diseases are concerned, very, very powerful and how it shows. I've literally, no joke, mine is that I've actually become thick-skinned. Amazing how I've created that. And permanently bruised. So my skin, as an example, overproduces collagen. So a rare autoimmune disease. And what does it mean? Well, it means that I've become thick-skinned. My skin is tight. It's very tight. The skin's tight. And the big collagen deposits stays permanent bruising. So it looks like I'm permanently bruised. Okay, you can't see it right here on camera. But my arms and my legs, it looks like I'm permanently bruised. So it's quite amazing how the unconscious creates reflections of that that inflammation, that bruising. So why would you have the higher your ACE score, and the more likely that you have inflammatory diseases? Well, it's because the genes responsible for clearing cortisol, okay, and this is my reference as far as this is concerned is to the one done by the McGill University in Montreal, shows that you're 40% less active, okay? So those genes that clear cortisol are 40% less active in the brain of those with a high ACE score, okay? So that means that you are significantly more vulnerable to stress. So why tell you all this? Is this depressing? Are you showing me this, Heidi, to depress me? No, absolutely not at all. It means you can do something to change it, okay? Now that you absolutely can see, it's not psychosomatic, okay? It's not your imagination. There are changes that occurred. There were pathways that deviated. They were things that were set up before you could do anything about them. Okay? What I'm saying to you, and hopefully that you're getting in very clear format, that these things are not your fault. Okay? These things are not your fault. They have been there, not just in your life experience, but they've probably been there through generations and generations. And no one changes any of it until they know what they're changing, what they're adjusting. Okay? So this is about you realizing that you can change something. You can do something to change it. And it's not psychosomatic. It exists. Okay? It does exist. Your experiences, that freeze, that I can't do anything, I've become paralyzed, become feeling powerless, I feel helpless, I feel like I can't do something, I sabotage, I procrastinate, all of those things. There's a reason, okay? Hopefully now you understand what that reason is, but it doesn't mean to say that you don't participate within changing that reason, okay? Just type in and let me know what you think and feel as far as that's concerned so far, okay? You're not weak. You're not weak. You're far from it. You're not a weak person. And maybe, as I say, shown by some of those adversity scores, the number one in terms of for intuitive sensitives, the verbal abuse was high, exceptionally high, okay? And maybe you've been told that your entire life. Maybe that's what the message has been to you. Maybe it was covert rather than overt in your early life, but then maybe you got into a relationship with someone when it was overt, where it was really quite painful, and it sat in there deep. It sat in there and in a deep way and caused you an immense amount of stress. And you think, well, I must be weak then. You're not weak. You're far from it. You're not weak. Okay? It takes a very brave person, really brave person, to deal with it. Your heritage hasn't. Your heritage hasn't dealt with it at all. Okay, it takes a brave person. And you found that by yourself. Okay? You found that by yourself. You had some deep thing within yourself to say, do you know what? There's something that I need to adjust, that I want to change. And you went and found that yourself. Okay? You went and did it. Something within you wants that different. Okay? And that takes a brave person. Of course you're brave. You wouldn't still be listening to me. You would have gone, oh, da, 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 da. You're still listening to me. So therefore, in my opinion, that takes one very brave person. Okay? You're far from weak. So how do you solve this? How do you go, well, Heidi, if I'm all geared towards this and it's all my brain going this direction and it should be going in that direction, how do I change it? I haven't got hope in hell, surely. Well, absolutely you can solve it. Very much so you can solve it. Now, there are 3 areas to start as far as that's concerned, okay? And I'm going to tell you in a second what those 3 areas are. So if you haven't written things down so far and you've got a pad and pen in front of you, start writing what these 3 things are. If you focus on these 3 things for you in terms of how you are shaped in that particular direction as an intuitive sense, this is specific, okay? Specific to the sensitive and the intuitive sensitive. And you think, well, I'm sensitive, but I'm not intuitive, Heidi. Well, you are damn well intuitive, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. Okay? Intuitive people, intuitive sensitivity means that you utilize that deeper core part of who you are in terms of your survival mechanism to intuitively find your path forward. Okay? That's what it means. Yes, of course. As you do that, yes, you will find that your intuitive ability and instinct comes out in a sharper way. That's what mine did. Because I chose to actually direct all of that into something useful, something that gives me an ability to look at things in a clearer way. That's all. It's just with an element of clarity. Why? Because I've got this hypersensitive nervous system. I can do that. People who haven't can't. So I just utilized and made the best of something that's already there. Okay? So what's the first thing that you do? You focus on creating an inner security blanket. Okay? When your inner world hasn't won. I'll explain or give you an indication of what that means in a minute, but that's what you do, okay? You focus on, number one, the key area. This is what I did, and it worked, okay? And it's worked for thousands of other intuitive sensitives. And you may not, you may think, well, Heidi, I've been, around you for quite some time, and you've never really explained it this way. Well, this is what you've been doing, okay? You've been creating, or I've helped you direct in terms of that direction of focusing on creating an inner security blanket when your inner world doesn't have one, okay? I'll explain how you do that in a minute. Number two is you create predictability. This is key, very, very key as far as you're concerned, because the higher your ACE score, okay, the more stressed you become by inconsistency. So to give you as an example, when stress is predictable, it causes a lot less damage on the system than when it is unpredictable. When stress is unpredictable, when you can predict that, let's say 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, you have to do something that causes you stress, okay? That stress is predictable, so therefore it has much less of an impact. It has no impact actually, because you can reset excuse me, on your system than an unpredictable stress, okay? So one of the key areas, if you grew up around an alcoholic, just giving you this as an example, if one of your parents was an alcoholic, your system is highly stressed because it had to deal with chronic unpredictability, okay? So one of the key areas to really start to rework things and unfreeze the freeze is to create predictability. Because, as I say, the higher your ACE score, the more stressed you become by inconsistency. And also the lower your score is, it needs to be predictable stress. So you start to create patterns in your life where there is a level of predictability, where you know what you can predict your way around things, and then you will find that the freeze begins to unfreeze. So what it also means is that you pre-warn your system, okay, of changes the best that you can. So you pre-warn your own system. So this is about then developing that relationship. When I said that that's switched off at the moment, your ability to notice what the body is trying to talk to you about. It may be, you may have done the work enough for it to start to turn on, but when it's really on, your system becomes really quite aware of it, and it can return to its healthy balance, okay? Even if perhaps it hasn't had it for a long time. Pre-warn your system of changes the best that you can, okay? And number three is you strengthen the weak neurological pathways, and that is perfectly possible. Okay, if you think, well, hang on, surely if it's my brain wired in that direction, you can't change it. Yes, you can. Absolutely you can. Because the brain is plastic. Doesn't mean that it's made of plastic. It has a level of plasticity, which means it can change. You can change pathways. You can adjust stuff. You can do that, but you have to participate within it. It won't do it on its own. Okay? I'm making this really, really clear. It won't happen on its own. Why? Because it can't. Because you're wired in a direction you don't want to keep to that higher level of freeze and stress in your system. Okay? It can't happen on its own. And yes, in adjusting that, and you're saying to me, well, is it going to be perfect then, Heidi? No, it's never going to be perfect. Okay? If you've got a high ACE score, it's never going to be perfect, okay? It will be imperfectly perfect. It means that you will be a perfect imperfection. And I've used this analogy before. It's the smashed vase. You had this perfect porcelain vase opportunity in this perfect human being coming into the world, you as that person. And that vase, that perfect porcelain vase got dropped. And maybe it's been dropped quite a few times, and it's smashed into 1,000 pieces. But what you've been doing is putting those pieces back, okay? And you are molding the most beautiful vase you've ever seen, because you've got the pieces and you're putting them back together. It's created a mosaic of light, something different. It shines differently to that plain mosaic, that plain porcelain vase. It's a mosaic. It catches the light. It's something that shows a level of depth and intensity. Okay, that's what you are. You're never going to be perfect. Okay, your system is never going to be absolutely perfect. It doesn't exist, and it certainly doesn't exist for a highly traumatized system. What does exist is you can be imperfectly perfect, okay? But it's not going to happen on its own. You have to participate with yourself. So, how would you like me to help you do this, okay? Again, type in if you'd like me to help you do this. It's very, very easy, very simple, and completely and utterly accessible for everybody, okay? So, solving that starts with focusing on creating the inner security blanket, okay? So how do you do that? How do you start that process of creating that inner security blanket, that core comfort? Well, you have to address inner shame, okay? And before you go, whoa, that sounds uncomfortable. Maybe it is. But actually, if you want to feel better, your core needs a security blanket, needs something of comfort. And how do you do that? In my view, it's you address your inner shame, okay? So how can you do that now? Well, if you're a circle member, it's already there for you, okay? For free. I've done a course for you as a circle member. If you're a circle member already, it's there for you for free, okay? You don't have to pay for it, nothing. I'm giving this to you for free. Complete access to that course in terms of starting to create that stability, in terms of that security blanket, okay? And you may have done lots of other courses with me and things around that, but this is something, this is to give you this indication to feel that you've got something, okay? That your inner world's got something that it can, it's starting to have its blanket. And the only way it's going to hold its blanket is if you allow the shame to disperse. And that's not just your shame. It's stuff that's been there for generations, okay? But it's dissolvable. So if you're a circle member, it's there for you for free, okay? If you're not currently a circle member, you go, well, that's not fair. How come they get this course? Well, you become a circle member for £1. £1, okay? You get trial membership for 30 days for £1. Can't make it any less than that. You get in there and you then, for £1 for 30 days, trial circle membership, you will have that course and you will have 2 other courses. So you'll have that mini course plus 2 others, which are worth £99. Remember right at the beginning, and I said about, the 3 top areas to deal with, 3 top areas that you're dealing with, okay? In terms of your life as an intuitive sensitive, in your adult life, okay? Not in terms of your ACE, but in terms of your adult life. 3 key areas. Those 3 top ones around guilt, how you process that, difficult people, and how it relates also to, feeling that your adrenals are whacked out. Well, there's 3 courses in there, okay? It's in the circle for £1 for 30 days, worth £99. That's how much we would sell, or we do sell them for individually, or they have been sold for individually outside of the circle to non-circle members. in previous time. Yes, for you as a circle, if you're thinking, hang on a second, I'm a circle member. Are those for me as well? Yes, they're in there. They're in there. You may have already done them. Now, though, you understand how you do them in order. Okay? So you do the shame one first, which is new. No one's had that before. For free. Okay? Non-member, sign up, trial, £1 for 30 days. Okay? Gives you plenty of time to then to do those videos and to do those meditations. Okay? And to do the exercise as well. Okay, it gives you plenty of time to do all those courses in 30 days if you don't want to become a longer term member. Okay, and it's given to you in order depending on your specific path. Okay, remember you filled in the quiz, and it's done for you in a specific order. Okay, there's no overwhelm then. There's no decisions. You don't have to make a decision. You don't have to go into a freeze. It's done for you. Okay, it's given to you for £1. If you want to then do, that's a security blanket. If you then want to do the second part within that, which is to develop predictability or enhance that ability to do that, then keep your circle membership. After those 30 days, where it will then switch to £15 a month, which is a cancel at any time subscription. Okay, so then after that, all circle members can cancel at any time. There's no fixed contract, etc. You can cancel at any time. This is why people are circle members. Okay, it gives them that level of predictability. That's why members are members. I'm there for them. Okay, they have that level of predictability. I'm there for them. I'm there. I don't disappear. I don't go on anyone. I'm there. I'm there as that level of giving your internal world that possibility of healing and stabilizing. Why do I do that? Because I offer what I would have liked and never received and had to find out for myself. And that wasn't fair, quite frankly. I don't think it was fair. And that's why I do them, to give that level of stability and predictability. Okay. And the number 3, which is to strengthen the weak neurological pathways. Well, how do you do that? Well, you do that with the circle meditations. Okay, for those of you, again, who circle members who've been slack on your meditations, they're in there. That's what they're there for. That's to strengthen your neurological pathways, so you don't have to be in freeze. Okay, but you have to make the effort. You have to do it. It's there. It's part of being a circle member. Okay, and of course the extra courses, all the others that I do. If you're not a circle member, they're there as well. All those extra courses that I do are all at substantially reduced costs for circle members. Substantially reduced costs for circle members. And again, in terms of those one-to-one sessions and things like that I do, most people don't even get anywhere near them because there's only one of me. I have a waiting list that's very long, and circle members get priority. Of course they are, because I offer them that level of predictability and stability. But if you're you say, oh, Heidi, I prefer in person. I'm more of an in-person kind of person. I don't really want to do stuff on. I'm more of an in-person kind of person. Well, then join me, members and guests, so circle members and guests, me. This is the annual event that I do in March, which is for intuitive sensitive people. It's me who gives that entire thing. It's me in person, where you can come and talk to me. I give presentations, all as part of that. It's Inspire UK. We have people coming from all over the world. It's near what's next to an airport, next to a major airport, because we do have people coming in from all over the world for that event. And that is the annual event that I do for intuitive sensitive people to learn, to develop, to have connection, and where they want to talk to me. You know, I'm not an elusive being, but it is the annual event that I do. And yes, I do very few in-person events, simply because I can't do, I can't do so many now. And when you want that interaction, you want to talk to me, you want to see me, you want to connect with your other intuitive sensitives, and you want that depth of interaction because you like it, or you want to enhance what you're doing in terms of, let's say, the shame course, then come to Inspire. Come to it. Be part of it. Do your best to be there. You will feel like you're the only person in the room. If you think, well, what then happens if my whole system becomes overwhelmed and all this? You won't get it. That won't happen, because you're in the environment where we all get that. And so it's all accounted for. You feel safe, you feel comfortable, and you feel completely and utterly included. And you will feel like you get that deep level of transformation. So, the links are below, okay, for Inspire and for the circle. Okay, so, you don't really have any excuse. There's no excuse. If you like what I've said, and it resonates with you, it makes sense to you, and you're ready. If you're still listening to me now, you really are ready to start that, or to really enhance that process. And yes, and if you're thinking, well, is that just it then? It's just this course on shame. No, it's not, because as time moves forward, you will find that there are other courses that I will make very much available that are to do with healing these core components when you've got an adversity score that needs assistance with adjustment. So I hope you've enjoyed this session. Absolutely, I really do hope to see you at Inspire. Really do hope to see you at Inspire in March. And if you're not a Circle member, I really look forward, hopefully, seeing you at a Circle session. And I really do hope that you enjoy sorting the inner shame course. You will find that it's profoundly helpful. Have a good evening, daytime, wherever it is that you are. And I very much look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now.